start. It's only a few minutes. So welcome everyone. We would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Gawler people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Gawler people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Gawler today. Everybody's here and there are no apologies. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence? No. No leave of absence, no. Are there any declarations of interest? Would someone like to move the acceptance of the last meeting's minutes? Karen, seconded by Adrian. Any discussion? No? Those in favour, please show. Against? Carried. Right, item 6.1, request for permission to publish. Would you like to speak to that?
Through the chair, we've received another request for permission to publish a photograph that's in the collection. This photograph is the Gawler Institute Committee from 1965, and as far as we can ascertain, we have the only named copy of that photograph. In 2014, Council invested funds in having it restored by ArtLab. It is a significant photograph, and while I certainly understand that Ms. Trin would like a photograph of a family relative that doesn't appear to exist anywhere else, in this instance, the officer's recommendation is that we provide only a snapshot of this individual and not a copy of this photograph.
Thank you, Jacinta. Karen?
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation if I'm able to speak to it, Chair. I think, thank you, Jacinta, for that update and that explanation. I think what this demonstrates is a case-by-case approach to any item that is that a request comes in about. So it's not just a stock standard tick box. So I really like the fact that there's been some analysis around this request. I think there's been a compromise outcome to provide a picture of the family member that they're interested in without necessarily taking the photograph, which isn't for publication. It's a significant piece. 1865, you know, it's an important period of years for the Institute. So I really support this because I think it just shows that we don't just automatically say yes. We think about it, we consider the provenance, we consider the significance of the item and whether, you know, that should be on display or whether people should come and see it themselves. And I think that goes to the heart of the importance of the collection. So I support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to second it, Helen?
I do, but I would like to move an amendment and I need some guidance. Can I do that at this point? Yep. I just simply want it. So it's the second one. I would support that, and I echo the sentiments of the Mayor. I think it's an elegant compromise, but I'd like to add onto it and seek a copy of the family history that Ms. Trin is compiling for inclusion into the Gawler Heritage Collection.
So as the mover, I'm happy to accept that variation. It's not an amendment, it's a variation. And I'm happy as the mover to accept those changes in words.
So through the chair, Ms. Trin isn't going to produce a publication. She's only going to do a MyHeritage website entry for the family tree.
Okay, sorry, I understood from the first paragraph, it's put she was compiling a family history, so I assumed, is it still worth perhaps seeking our interest in anything that she produces? I don't know, I'm take guidance.
So through the chair, at the Cultural Heritage Centre, we take an interest in anyone who contacts us, and we try to maintain an ongoing relationship in case they find some information that we might think is interesting on Mr. Frankel. Obviously, he was an important Gawlerite. So we do have a relationship with Ms. Trin, and we can certainly talk about that, facilitate that, and ask her if she's thinking down the track of producing anything that would be a document, if we could have that and add that to the family history collection.
Okay. I think I would like my variation to remain, simply because I'm trying to set a precedent that goes with granting permission and seeking back. But I'm happy to have any other input into that idea.
Could you read it out for us again, please?
Sorry, Mayor, I didn't. And seek a copy of, maybe I'll change it to any family history that Miss Trin is compiling for inclusion into the Gawler Heritage Collection. Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you. And I think to put pertaining to August Frankel and Gawler.
Through the chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
See a copy of any family history Ms. Trin is compiling that includes the image that the Heritage Collection provides. I don't think we would be requesting anything if they're not using that image specifically. Yes. So seek a copy of any family history pertaining to Mr. August Frankel that Ms. Trin is compiling that includes the image that council staff will provide.
And that comes point 3 of that record. An addendum to 2? Okay, good. Okay, thank you for that. Right, and you're happy with that, mover? Nearly 30 years I've been retired, I'll have you know. Yeah, but Sarah sold it. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so you're happy with that? And you, of course, have moved it. Is there any discussion about that amendment? If not, with those, then we'll do 1 and 2 together, I think. Those in favour, please show. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. 6.2, conservation of the Wenzel teapot. Very exciting.
What's the inscription on it? I can't see it. It's all blurry. Or does it? I cannot read it.
So through the chair, it's in the report below the image. There's actually an extract of the words within the report on page 8 of 19 of the agenda.
I've got that. But...
Token of respect and esteem by his friends in Gawler and its neighbourhood.
That's a silver goblet.
Sorry,
So
that's the
through the
goblet.
chair, it's on page 7
Page
of the
7.
report.
Marriage.
The teapot is inscribed, presented to Mr. G. Rippon on the occasion of his marriage, 7/7/1890 from St. George's Youth Friendly Society.
Oh, okay.
The further inscription reads, from St. George Youth FS, Gawler, in recognition of his valuable service.
Thank you, Chair. So the Rippon family approached the Cultural Heritage Centre with the offer of the teapot. The reason staff were interested in the teapot was because it had that strong connection to St. George Friendly Society, and we don't have a lot of items in the collection that reflect the importance of the friendly societies in Gawler. It was also a Went silver teapot, and they are an important part of South Australia's manufacturing, artistic heritage as well. So that was an important consideration in the when we were looking at this teapot. I was not sure of the value of the teapot, so I did take it to Theodore Bruce to have the teapot valued to see whether it met the $1,500 threshold to bring before the committee before it was accepted into the collection. It doesn't at this stage. It probably will after we've had it restored, but at this stage it doesn't, so it has been entered into the collection. But what I'm bringing to the committee and looking for is consideration about whether we take it to be cleaned and then have an appropriate storage box and bag created at this time, or whether we just have the storage box and bag. And the reason we're looking at those two options is that in any silver cleaning, including cleaning by Art Lab, we lose a microscopic amount of the silver. So if we weren't considering putting this on display anytime soon or publicising this acquisition, there'd be a strong argument to simply create the storage box and pop it away. But I'm looking for guidance from the committee about whether we think we would like to clean it and let the community know that we've received this rather significant acquisition, or whether we simply acquire the storage box and the bag, and at some point in the future we may wish to put it as included as part of an exhibition.
Thank you, Jacinta.
Is it useful to have it when you get something like that? Is it useful to have like a little individual spot display of something somewhere for people to see when they come in to do council business, just to publicise the fact that people are giving?
Bit like the
things like
one that McKinley's Head is in, that kind of perspex display box.
Congratulations. This is brilliant to know that it's come in, and it is very significant. And I agree, the friendly societies and churches the story of that will benefit from this item. I'm actually not so sure that we do need to polish it in terms to publicise it or to put it on display. I think our community is sophisticated enough to understand that given its age, it will look as it looks. So I'm actually quite happy with the second option, but I would be very keen, and I agree with Adrian. I do think we need to publicise it. I think we need to keep sharing the good news of what's happening. But I also think if we can come to a very short-term recent donations or something, so we keep promoting it, I think that will be the case. So I actually can't think of something why we would need to polish it to perfect shiny situation.
So through the chair, it wouldn't be polished until to a bright, shiny new. However, a thorough cleaning will bring up the intricacies of the design. So that's a consideration, the aesthetic of the pot, but that would be something that you need to take into account.
Do we have a costing for the cleaning?
So through the chair, the storage box by itself was $517, including cleaning, it's $1,023. So it's approximately $506 for the cleaning component.
Chair. I'd rather invest the additional $500 in perhaps training our staff to be able to professionally clean it.
Through the chair, staff are trained in how to clean it, but an initial clean needs to happen from Art Lab because we don't have the equipment to get into the crevices. And so if you can imagine, it's a once in a 30-year clean, and that needs to be done by professionals. And I also took it to Art Lab because I needed to ensure that the verdigris was stable, and it is, which is good to hear. But so yes, if it is cleaned at some point in time, staff are trained to keep it clean if necessary.
I'm not sure that we need to clean it. Every time you clean one of these things, you lose a bit of silver. And I just think if we're not going to display it, if we don't have it in an exhibition, certainly store it in an appropriately crafted box. Promote the acquisition. But I think it looks beautiful just as it is. And I just, every time you clean it, so there could be you could clean it now, put it away for 2 years, bring it out, you need to clean it again. So I would rather just put it in the box, promote that we have it, let people look at it as it is. And if we ever need to, properly clean it, then we send it off to, and it might be a little bit more expensive, but it won't be much more expensive, basic cleaning. I just think it's unnecessary cleaning if it's going to be stored in a box after you clean it for goodness knows how long until we need it for an exhibition. So that's my thoughts. I'm a little bit with Helen.
Deb, and
with
then
option
Paul.
2.
Sorry, David, could you just tell me again how much it was going to cost to have it cleaned? So we're looking at spending in total, if we do go ahead, 1,500 and it's only worth just over
No,
that
through the
much?
chair, the total including cleaning would be 1,023.
Right,
The 517 reference is just the
the
bag and
box,
box. Yep.
yes.
So it's 506 for the clean.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Look, I'm happy with option 2 and not cleaning, just the bag and the box, but also I would like to see it displayed short term, just so people could see it and appreciate it, and then it can go into the box and maybe later on for an exhibition.
I mean, is it possible to, some of the saving of not cleaning it, to create a container that's, you know, for it to be displayed in?
Through the chair, in the first instance, I think we'd put it in the cabinet where McKinley is, and he could have a rest from the light for a little bit. Down to Vex.
It's just having an out-of-body experience, isn't it? Okay, sorry about that, folks. All right, so we have two options in front of us, and people have spoken. So have we got a mover for one of these? Helen, you want to move?
Yeah, I'll move option 2,
Option
please.
2, seconder. Deb, any further discussion? If not, those in favour, please show. Against, carried. Thank you.
I don't feel necessary to add the thing about following up options for display as per Adrian, but I'd like to see that investigated, please.
Right, updated notion list, 7.1. Any discussion, anything anyone wants to raise in relation to that?
I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but I'd like to do some information sharing. Is this the best spot to do it in the agenda, please?
Oh, right.
Okay, in terms of making sure everyone around the table is fully aware of what's happened, can I let them know that the Gawler Cultural Heritage Foundation, of which I'm the present chair, was approached by Jacinta for 5 items of Gawler's sporting history that were going up for auction at the Michael Trelaw, and we've been successful in some fundraising and successful in having a nominated bidder. So on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, there is a presentation from the foundation with all the sponsors to the Mayor on behalf of the town of Gawler of the 5 items. So perhaps Jacinta could speak a little bit about that. And I was in the room yesterday where there was another successful acquisition that I think I'd like Jacinta to better share with the group, because it's again very exciting.
Go.
Through the chair, Jacinta had a very exciting Thursday, I have to say. So the donation from the foundation are members' tickets and ephemera from the late 1880s and early 19th century from football. They're very rare, which is why they were in the Michael Trelaw auction. They're obviously they're not items that most people kept, and we have very few. We have photographs in the collection with sport, but we have very few physical objects. So these were fascinating to see come onto the market, and we're very grateful for the foundation. I approached the foundation. I said, "This is here. Would you be interested in supporting any of it?" And in a short space of time, they put in a huge effort to create a big group of donors who were willing to be a part of that project, and successfully secured those items. So we're very grateful for that. And then on Thursday, we were offered, I had been speaking to Colleen, and we were offered a very unusual complete collection. She had her mother's wedding dress, and she offered me her mother's wedding dress, which is lovely, but there's a lot of wedding dresses out there. Normally we wouldn't take that. However, this dress her mother made in Gawler. Her mother learnt dressmaking at Gawler Technical College. She has her technical college certificates. She has some samplers of her work. She has a thorough record of her mother at Gawler High School. We have the engagement cards for the wedding dress. We have the wedding invitations, the acceptance cards. We have the receipt from the honeymoon hotel. We have the receipt from their wedding rings. And we also have the documents, a small amount of documents around the kit home that they built just after they were married. So we have a really strong, almost complete archive of a young woman who was raised in Gawler, who trained in Gawler, who worked in Gawler and got married and stayed in this region. So it's that part of her life. It sounds like a lot of things, but it's actually a box and a wedding dress. So it's not a huge acquisition in terms of linear meters, but it's very unusual to have that complete record of a young woman and her life in the 1940s, and then in 1953 she was married. So it's very complete. The wedding dress is in incredible condition, so we were very excited to have that.
Di, were you going to ask the date? Yes, so was I. Okay, did you want to say something other than that? No, okay.
Through the chair, that they got married in 1953.
Any further discussion? All right, thank you for that. That's very exciting, isn't it? 8.1, exhibition feedback process. Do you want to talk to that, Jacinta?
Through the chair, we'll be presenting a report at the next meeting on a whole lot of aspects of the different exhibitions, and including the forthcoming one. So we might speak to the feedback in that report.
So wait for the next meeting. Okay, fine. All right. We come to notice of motion 10.1. Oh, questions without notice. Sorry, beg your pardon. I missed that. Any questions without notice? No, sorry. Okay. 10.1. Did you want to speak to this, Di?
It doesn't really bother me either way how this goes. I just thought it was something that we probably needed to discuss. Our meetings are very, very short. Whether we can extend them to do them bi-monthly, I don't know. But within council, it's coming up for us to be talking about terms of reference of meetings and who's going to be on the meetings for the next year. So I just thought this was a conversation that we probably needed to have. That was all.
Thank you. Anyone in discussion? Anyone would like to talk about? Yes, Helen?
I think there's been quite a bit of discussion between members of the committee. My feeling is that I'm ambivalent to it. I'm actually happy to support it on a couple of provisos. One is that we re-emphasise how we would call a special meeting if needs be, and that there is some form of information or consultation email that comes out if things, for example, if displays are coming up, because we have had an active part as the committee in providing feedback to our displays. So I'd like to perhaps tease out and talk about how we would do that.
I probably should have asked you to move it formally before we started the discussion. I'm sorry, Di. If you'd like to do that. Someone like to second the motion? Paul? Okay, we'll continue with this. Thank you. We'll continue the discussion. Anyone else got comments they'd like to make?
Yeah, I'm sort of not fussed either way because our other major committees are bi-monthly. However, a number of items that should go up to those committees often go up to council, and I think they get missed out by being discussed at a committee level because they're bi-monthly and they don't tend to have special meetings. So as much as we can have special meetings, I think a minimum of 4 hours notice is required for a special meeting, but it does require people to be fairly flexible in being available so that we have a quorum. And also just to remind people that under the Local Government Act, we can't make decisions outside of these meetings. This is a properly constructed committee under the Local Government Act. So you can certainly share information. I think that's where Helen was coming from. But if we were being asked to make a decision electronically, either via email, that would be probably outside of the Local Government Act. So I'll just remind people of that because we are all subject to the Code of Conduct for council members. Even when you're on a committee, you are subject to the Code of Conduct, and people can complain as they are allowed to, and it is their right if we don't follow due process. So yeah, I'm leaning towards supporting this, but I think also when we have issues that we want, that you need, Jacinta, a decision on, we need to be prepared to call a special meeting, because if we don't, things get delayed. And also, sharing information so that we feel we're kept informed. Because if we don't feel we don't feel we're kept informed, you lose motivation to be part of the committee. You might lose people off the committee, and then the committee becomes a bit superfluous. And I think that would be a shame. So I just raise those issues to make sure that we don't lose sight of the importance of this committee, because I think it has helped drive the success of the Cultural Heritage Centre and also cultural heritage in general. So just those thoughts. Thank you.
Di and then Deb.
I just asked Jacinta a question about her thoughts on it.
So through the chair, I've taken on board everything that everyone has said today. Yes, I think a lot of what we bring reports to the committee aren't time sensitive. I felt that the feedback and the information sharing around exhibitions worked well last time, and that's timely in that designers really like their information and their feedback in a time frame, and you were able to provide that by email, so that worked particularly well. Potentially going forward, if we move to bi-monthly, there's an opportunity to us to batch reports if needs be. So when I'm doing permissions to publish, they tend to be somewhat similar, apart from the analysis. So there are time savings in that. And at the moment, time savings are somewhat critical because of the success of the Cultural Heritage Centre and the number of visitors that we're getting. So I can certainly understand the pros and cons of either means, but I believe we would manage perfectly well by monthly. And it's my understanding that if we didn't think we could, the committee could then ask to change the terms of reference back. Would that be possible?
Yes, through the chair, it is always possible for the committee to revisit, and also as the mayor and Helen have said, special meetings are all, and Councillor Fraser, special meetings are possible as well. And we would definitely enact that if there was an urgent requirement for a decision of the committee to go to council. In my experience of this committee, we haven't actually presented anything to council that needed to go through this committee as a standalone without going through the committee. That's my understanding of where we've been over the last few years. So there hasn't been, as the mayor was alluding to, some reports do bypass committee because of timeliness to go straight to council, but that hasn't been the case with reports related to this committee's remit in the past. So I agree it's monthly, but also the time sensitivity isn't as evident for this committee, if that makes sense.
The motion itself, are we able to agree to it, or do we put it to council to alter it?
So through the chair, under the terms of reference, it's a committee decision regarding meeting frequency. It'll be adopted by council through the processes around those committees, but it'll be a noting, yes.
Deb?
I'd like to suggest that we trial the bi-monthly.
How do people feel about that? Any comments?
Yeah, I would support that we review it, say in 12 months' time, and see how it goes. A question to Jacinta: the permission to use photo images, that isn't time sensitive. I would have thought they were biting at the whatever.
Through the chair, anyone who's actually done a family history knows that it's a long, drawn out process. So no, nobody has indicated so far that they had any time pressures. Potentially down the track, if it was a publisher of a book, that may well be the case, but as long as we have that option to call the committee together, we can manage that.
Okay, so are we going to add a clause then about a 12-monthly review? Would that be feasible to do? Okay, so would you like to just add that to the,
Just be revisited on an annual basis?
be revisited on an annual basis? Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, you have the motion before you. Those in favour, please show. Against, it's carried. Thank you, Di. We move to motions without notice. Are there any motions? Yes, Helen?
Sorry, I'm not very familiar with I actually think I should have raised it under items listed for discussion. I did notice as I was reading through this, that perhaps it's time, there was a mention of a draft procedures manual back in one of the reports. Maybe it's time that should be brought to us for undrafting, or whatever the opposite word of draft is, for formalising. And the other thing is that we haven't had an update on our strategic plan for a while. So I was wondering whether they could be discussions for future meetings.
Anyone do you want to comment on that? Jacinta or David? No?
So through the chair, the update on the work plan and strategic management plan is in train to be done. I think it was in either November or December meeting this year. So that is in train. And regarding the procedure development, Jacinta has been working through that. That's an internal document within the administration, so it doesn't actually necessarily need adoption by the committee because it sits underneath the policy level, which the committee is responsible for. And just noting, sorry, through the chair, with the motion that the committee's just passed regarding meeting frequency, we'll update those terms of reference, but we won't be enacting from an administration perspective in terms of timeframes the decision until the new calendar year, just because we'll need to get it to council and then process that through. So we'd still be anticipating a November and December meeting this calendar year, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's clarified it for me, certainly. Is there any further discussion? If not, thank you, Buddy.